Majesty's a pretty nice girl, but she doesn't have a lot to say. Her Majesty's a pretty nice girl, but she changes from day to day. I want to tell her that I love her a lot, but I gotta.
Hey, welcome back. This is the Ray Lucia Show. I think this is Obscure Beatle Day, so I think we left Tiny Dancer on the back shelf and doing some obscure Beatle songs. Her Majesty is here, though. That would be Lyn Rowe, Certified Financial Planner. Lyn, I know you had a rough weekend. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, thanks.
We've been talking about longevity and the fact that people will be living significantly longer into the future. Now, your experience this weekend, however, is on the other side of that. You lost your brother. This is the second brother that you've lost in the last few years. Is the third?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, let's talk about that for just a minute, because we know it's gonna happen to all of us sooner or later. And your business is, those last few years of care.
Right.
So how did that work out for your brother?
Well, I want to talk about two brothers. One made so not so good choices, and one made good choices. Now, the one that we just lost had been diagnosed with prefrontal dementia. And it's a specific type of dementia, but the bottom line is there's no memory loss necessarily in the beginning. It's not something that people would recognize. It starts with personality changes and, crankiness, and starts to go into other things, fears and phobias and so forth. He was a stockbroker, Ray. Very successful stockbroker who had it under control, we're going to self-insure, like a lot of gentlemen say to me. Got the finances, we can do this, and besides, my kids and my wife have the instructions to pull the plug. Well, many times there's no plug to pull. In this case, it was something that he didn't anticipate, and it crept up on him and it crept up on the family. And wives, she did what typically wives will do. She felt like bringing somebody in from the outside would be a betrayal, that she could take care of him during this situation. She started to talk to the family about it because she knew something was going on. They didn't believe her. His twin didn't believe her. Didn't believe her. Thought that she might be, having issues. She had, at that point, developed cancer. She was going through chemo. And his twin came to visit them. His twin and his wife came to visit them and came away from the situation refusing to talk about it. He wouldn't talk about it after that.
Really?
Yeah. Now, the sister-in-law saw what was going on, and we started talking, and his wife went through the chemo, recovered thankfully. She became a cancer survivor and very successful. Meanwhile, she was being running interference for him, trying to protect him from people in the family who just didn't believe it, but at the same time trying to protect him from himself, because he got to the point where, Ray, he'd be in a car and he would be scared to death to be in the car, and he'd try to jump out. I mean, those are the kinds of behaviors that come along with this.
So is this the brother that just passed this weekend?
Yes.
So, and did they have any financial insurance or anything of that nature?
No insurance.
So they did self-insure. Were they able to ever bring somebody in, or did she?
He would not hear of it at that point because his personality changes. I mean, you can't assume that you're going to be in charge and be in your full faculties at that point and say, well, we've got the money, dear, go ahead and call the caregivers. It doesn't work that way. Didn't work that way for him.
So how do you, what do you do? You sit down with them in advance and talk about this stuff and get buy-in earlier on before this happens?
Yes. They have to make good choices. You have to make good choices when you're in control of your faculties, when you are healthy, when you can have those conversations together, when you can say to each other, I don't want to put you through that. Because the kids begged her, finally, to get care, and she, again, he wouldn't hear of it. He just would not hear of it.
Do you think it was a financial thing? That,
No,
they just didn't want to let go of any of the money?
Well, I think that perhaps she was fearful. In a way, she might have been fearful that there wasn't enough because, not every couple sits down and talks about those finances in detail. They delegate it. He's in charge of that, she's in charge of this, and that's the way it goes throughout most of their lives. Well, she probably thought there was enough money, but again, it's a betrayal. It's like, I can't do that to him. I couldn't do that to
So
him.
are you suggesting that if in fact they had some kind of a plan in place, maybe even written out, where they had talked about this and both of them said to the other in this plan, yes, I think it's okay for you to do that, that she would feel as if she was off the hook?
I think she would feel much more like he had given permission when he was in his right mind, yes.
Okay, so...
now here's the worst part, Ray.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me the worst part, because
The worst part is now that he has passed, but she was re-diagnosed with cancer because of the stress.
Really?
Now she's going through chemo a second time. And the stress of going through this, we know that cancer is brought on by stress. We also know that cancer is exacerbated by stress. And so now she's having to deal with all of the final arrangements and all of that sort of thing while going through chemo.
Yeah, I know. Stress is a killer. There's no doubt about it. I've had my fair share of it.
Yes, you have.
Okay, so the question then is, how do you get people, when they do have their faculties, to sit down and talk about this stuff? Because it's not fun to talk about.
No, it's not fun to talk about. But you know, Ray, I will plead with people, please make responsible decisions that end your life with dignity, rather than putting people through that and being proud, being stubborn and proud. That's not the time to be stubborn and proud. That's the time to say, I care more about them than my own pride.
My special guest, Lyn Rowe, with a sad story today. IWantMyLTC.net is where you can find Lyn. IWantMyLTC.net. 877-270-3127 is the number. Okay, you said you had the tale of two brothers.
That's right.
This one had the money, spent the money, and his wife, your sister-in-law, stepped up to the plate to take care of him, even though maybe would have been better off had they gone through the process of getting an insurance policy. But now you have a second brother, and we might want to talk about that one after the break. When did that particular brother pass? Was it 2 years ago?
About 2 years ago.
Because I remember we had this kind of a conversation
Yes.
on the air
Yes.
back then, and you were telling stories. In fact, you did a whole series, as I recall.
That's right.
On this. It's so important, and it's one of the most overlooked areas in financial planning.
It's that one thing that's threatening them. It's
I was
stealth.
reading Trust Advisor earlier, and I was talking about this article, New Longevity Will Cause Financial Advisors to Change How They Give Advice. And they're talking about individuals' life expectancy moving from age 80 to age 100.
Yeah.
Well, that's 20 years. That's a long, long, long time.
That's right.
Now, granted, maybe in the first several years of that, you can be more active and you're more healthy and
Sure.
everything is great. But sooner or later, the bodies do wind down. And this is
Yes.
when you need to make sure you've done the planning.
Right.
So when we come back from the break, Lyn is going to talk about brother number 2 that passed. You have 3 brothers. You still have one alive?
I have 2. I actually had 5. I have 2 left.
Oh, there's 2. So you're the lone female child in the family?
No, there were 2 sisters.
Man alive. And okay, we'll talk about that on the other side. 844-RAY-SHOW if you have a question for Lyn. Otherwise, check her out. IWantMyLTC.net. See if you shouldn't have a plan for yourself and your family. IWantMyLTC.net. LTC, of course, standing for long-term care. Take a break. Be right back. Don't go away.